I'm Conor Sheridan, founder and CEO of Nory, and welcome to What's Cooking. Today on What's Cooking, we're joined by a man who's helped shape some of the most iconic hospitality brands in the UK, from Pret to Yo Sushi to Prezzo, now Prezzo Italian. Mark McCulloch isn't just a marketeer, he's a brand operator. He believes that brands shouldn't just sit on the sidelines, it should drive the playbook. And he's here to tell us why brand isn't a campaign, it's an operating system. In today's episode, we'll unpack the friction between marketing, ambition, and operational reality on the ground, and explore how Prezzo Italian navigated a full-scale brand refresh across a national estate, and dig into where AI, culture, and commercial pressure all collide. So let's get into it. Mark, welcome to What's Cooking. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me along. First day back from holidays, so it's a nice way to ease back in.
We'll go easy on you. We'll keep the questions light. No, super pumped to speak to you. You've led marketing and brand at some of the most iconic hospitality brands in the UK, Pret, Yo Sushi, now Prezzo, amongst others. You're the first marketeer we've had on the podcast. So really excited to get your perspective on how to run a successful hospitality business. Before we jump in, would you be happy to give us a brief intro into yourself and how you got to doing what you're doing today?
Yep. So born on a Tuesday. Next day, no. So basically, just been in marketing most of my life, really. Started out mechanical engineering and failed miserably, so went across to marketing, much easier. And then my first job really was music magazines, all really exciting in the 90s. So Loaded, NME, rock and roll, all that stuff. Come back of Britpop this summer.
As a purchaser myself.
Which was great. And then a few agencies, learned about digital, all that. But my first big job really was lastminute.com. So went in there and loved every second of it. Then for my sins, I went to Barclaycard, which I didn't love. I was a credit card sort of loan shark type guy, I suppose, doing the brand and marketing there. Big rebrand there, actually. So I learnt a lot there. And then went to Yo Sushi. So that's where I get into hospitality. So Yo Sushi, marketing, then I had a little dalliance with a music website, which was Peter Gabriel's music website. And then across to Pret for a year. And then started up on my own and sort of stayed in hospitality ever since.
Nice. We'll touch on a few of those different journeys today during the conversation, but definitely a unique set of experience, I think. One of the most unique we've had on the podcast, from Barclaycard to Last Minute to the leading brands. You talked on the rebrand on Barclaycard. You've also done a rebrand and a reposition on Prezzo.
Prezzo Italian.
Prezzo Italian. Stuck in my brain. Apologies for that. And a couple of other brands. Where do you even start with something like that? Like an initiative like that? It feels like you could start anywhere.
Well, the thing to do is not go in sort of arms flailing or like a kid running with scissors to go, this must be a rebrand. You know, a lot of the time it's about being like a GP, you know, so you go in and you see what the patient needs first. So it might not be a brand problem at all, right? So it might be something to do with the people, it might be something to do with locations, maybe something to do with the product, maybe something to do with the price, maybe something to do with, just the perception that's out there. It's not always a brand or branding issue. So that's the first cab off the rank, really. So I would definitely say a rebranding is one of the last things you should look at. And also a renaming and a redesign was definitely one of the last things you should look at too. But once you've got the evidence and you say, right, this is definitely what we need to do. I'm really lucky in that when I was at lastminute.com, I met a guy called Robert Bean. And Robert was my brand consultant and just father figure, mentor, everything to me. And he taught me the difference between brand and marketing. So really, in terms of brand and how you describe that, is that it's a promise delivered. That's what the whole thing's about. So once you understand that, and brand is different from branding, then you've got a set of principles and a set of tools and a process that you go through that, touch wood, is that wood? That's metal. Hasn't failed yet. You know, I've done it over 100 times now, and it's bulletproof. You know, not waterproof, it's bulletproof. So basically, you look at an organization as a whole and you say, right, what are the three parts of this organization? So the culture, one. The products and services are usually together. And then also the reputation. So the problem with most brands out there is that they are all flying separately from each other. So imagine the 3 circles flying through the air, terribly unaerodynamic. So you're losing pounds, shillings, and pence between those circles.
Interesting.
What you want to do in every great brand out there is about alignment, right? So the brands that you love them for a reason. You get what you expect from them. So think of, I don't know, what's some of your favorite brands that pop into your head?
Prezzo Italian.
Apart from that.
Around the corner from here, we go to Farmer J for lunch quite often, right?
Exactly. So, Farmer J, for example, the culture, you could pretty much imagine what it's like to work there and be there and what they're feeding their people metaphorically. The products and services are exactly what you expect. They're not doing big greasy things and things that aren't good for you, not from the land, and processed chicken and all the rest of it. And then the reputation they've got is for this amazing, fresh, delicious alternative, lunch or meal during the day, breakfast I'm sure as well. So that's a great new example. But the big ones, your Nikes, your Googles, your Innocents, all the rest of it, all of those are overlapping. So the culture, the products and services, and the reputation are all overlapping, zipping through the air as fast as you would like. And that's because they've got a North Star. They've got a brand DNA of something. I don't know them all, but of something that everyone believes in. So when they're hiring people or they're celebrating, success, or things are going wrong or whatever it is, then basically that culture is aligned to the products and services that you're serving, and then what people think of you. So it can be bad as well, right? Think about your Ryanairs of the world and all the rest of it. The reputation that they have is, look, they'll get me closer than here to the city I want to go to, but it might not be that close. But for all the bad stuff, there's a value proposition there as well, and there's some good juice in there. So what you're wanting to do is just make that all aligned. So if you're aligned, you'll be efficient, you'll be profitable. So the great thing is with this model is you go into any board meeting, you go into any investor, you go into any CFO, finance director, and you show them that equation and they buy it. Because so many brand people and marketing people are just fluff. Well, it'll be good because it'll freshen it up and it'll look cool and it'll win awards. Great. That doesn't really help the balance sheet. So because I've got that in my locker, and thanks to Robert over the years, then you always just feel pretty confident. It's kind of like being a good golfer. You know how to stand at the ball and what your swing is going to be and what bit of the ball you're going to hit to get that certain shot. So, it's just a fairly straightforward thing to do. And usually it takes about a day or a day and a half, so it doesn't even need to take that long. The underwhelming thing is at the end of it, you get a presentation that's got some words on, and that's kind of it. Whereas a lot of people are very visual and they want the whole thing. But that's the start of it. So you get the constituent parts of your brand. So you get your brand story. You get your, why you're better than your competitors. So why you would walk over broken glass for that. You get your customers out of it. You get the motivations that they have to use you. Why would you walk over broken glass to go to Cafe Nero rather than, Starbucks, whatever? And then you start to build your personality, your values, positioning statement, and then out of it, you should get 2 to 4 words that give you your brand DNA. And then once you've got that, you make sure everyone's on board with it. And the most important thing is then that you build that into culture and values and behaviours and reward and recognition and PDPs, and that's the engine room. And then from there, you also take it into brand development. So if your brand is all about, Prezzo Italian's a good example. If your brand is all about better Italian for everyone, and the positioning is the home of the Italian classics, then you sort of need to look and act a certain way. And also, if you're putting that promise out there, you have to make sure your Italian classics are really good, right? Because it's about that promise and that value exchange. So there's a lot of bits to it. But it's about you nailing that and then using everyone in the organization to then help with that alignment. You cannot do it alone. You cannot do it in silo as a marketing department. It just won't work.
I really like that. I think too often hospitality marketing is looked at as a line on a P&L, and usually it's like a minimized percentage of revenue, and everything else is much more operationally focused, which is super naive. And the way you frame that is, it's the entire ethos of the business, your brand, your value prop, everything we're here to, and we stand for and deliver is your brand. I think that makes it like incredibly eternal to everyone in the business.
Yeah.
So for Prezzo Italian, which I got
Well
correct
done.
the second time around, the rebrand has been awesome online to see some of the
Right, yeah.
stats. JB, the CEO, posted recently about some stores up 60% like for likes, really high NPS, great reaction. So you can imagine you're giving yourselves a big slap on the back so far, but
No, no,
no.
not at all.
Okay.
So the whole thing here is, this is great now, but something that GB and I have spoken about plenty of times is Sir Alex Ferguson. And what he talked about when I went to see him speak was, never ever was he worried about this Saturday's game. He was only ever worried about 2 or 3 years' time. And that's the mentality of, this is all great right now, and we're pleased, don't get me wrong, we're gassed about the whole thing. But for us to be high-fiving, confetti cannons, all that, let's see when we're at the finish line. Let's see how it's going. Because I guess, again, a football analogy is sort of new manager bounce, right? So we've all kind of came in, the great team that was already there have been part of this too, and everything's all new and shiny and exciting, and we're in the news, and let's see how it's going in February, or March or next summer. And again, we're going to be up against great like for likes that we've made a rod for our own back now. So I think you have to be glad and celebrate and all that stuff, but don't get cocky, don't get carried away, because you're only as good as the last goal you've scored, for sure. So we're keeping a lid on it a little bit, and there's so much great news, more news that we could be sharing. And actually JB's really good at saying to us, look, let's just hang back a little bit, because if we go out and go, wow, everything's amazing, and then by summer it's all, in the bin, then that's not going to help anyone. So it's definitely marathon sprint mentality, I think.
It's a nice paradigm, right? To know the leaders of the business are thinking in the order of years and not months. It gives confidence that the decisions being made are for the long term, which
For
is
sure.
what you need. When you look at the repositioning exercise itself, obviously many months culminating in those early wins, which is great. Did you have any kind of friction points or operational constraints that you had to navigate around? Obviously, everything hospitality is done to a P&L, done to a set of margins. Things are tight in every business in this environment. How did you manage to navigate that process or that initiative, considering the environment that we're operating in?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing, and this is with my brand Puritan wings on and my, Santa still exists and all that sort of fairy tale stuff. I have two wishes for the perfect brand project. One is that every work stream, so culture, products and services, reputation, is all happening at the same time. Life ain't like that, unfortunately. And also, I would love to have just been able to go, right, 96 restaurants, rebranded like that. The food is where we want it to be, the service is where we want it to be, the culture's magically just, growing organically fast. And it just doesn't work like that. So I'd say that's one of the biggest challenges and frustrations that we all have, is that if you're eating in the Brighton Prezzo Italian right now, you probably won't know. I mean, definitely the food and the service, because, there's been programs put in place to, everything's a bit better, so to make those better. But if you're looking at the fascia and the frontage and the branding, you're not going to notice that anything's changed. So the guys are doing it rapidly, and Matt and Dan and the whole property team are, oh God, they're not getting any sleep at all, sort of romping through as many as they can. But then it's obviously a cash flow situation, and, you've got to be sensible about that. So that's a frustration. I think in terms of anything else, I think operationally, the guys have been really open, and I think that's been through GB's leadership, but a lot of us are kind of new anyway. So we've come in with this new brief. So the ops director's brand new. The people director's been in the business for years, but really been hungry to, embrace change. And then you've got CFO's, just one of the best in the world. He's phenomenal, Dean, and he knows the business of old, but he's also, really embracing the new as well, and seeing how it's working. And then, Nadi's leading the market, and then you've got the property team, etc. So it feels like you've had this almost Avengers Assemble thing. And the star of the show really is Chad, that's been brought in. So he's, trained, amazing chef, and he's really got the bit between his teeth about this being, the best food it possibly can be.
Love that.
And his communications that go out. He's got a website for chefs with him. Last night I got something about how to make the best crispy squid ever, and all the rest of it. And it's not only useful for work, but it's just useful for home life as well. And he's a bit of a lone striker actually, so he just kind of goes off and does his thing, and comes back, and it's amazing, and we're blown away every day. And the cool thing is our new head office was the restaurant in Islington. So we've still got a working kitchen in there. So you see it happening live. And sometimes you get the leftovers and things like that. So that's quite cool.
Perks as well.
Yeah, I'm so impressed.
Nice. Maybe talk to us a little bit about like how you landed on Better Italian for Everyone, Prezzo Italian, how you not landed on your value prop versus anything more or less kind of aggressive, for example.
I mean, the whole thing from a brand perspective is fairly underwhelming, right? It's not, the Jaguar thing that happened where everyone lost their minds. I mean, we started at the name, and when GB and I were coming to the business, we were open to maybe changing it completely. But the more and more we learned about the business, and being out in the business, and meeting the people, and, talking to customers, and seeing customer research, you were like, this is a 25-year-old brand that, really defined casual dining back in the day. It was one of the sort of early ones, and it was set up as being like a sort of more stylish, sort of Pizza Express almost. It was sort of in that area. The problem with style though is that it goes out of fashion. So unless you keep up with style, then you're going to go out of fashion. So I think over the years, it was just starting to look a bit dated, interiors and things like that. Food was always solid. One of the biggest comments we always got was, God, I used to love going to Prezzo. I used to go with my family on a Friday night. You're like, well, why did you stop? What happened? And then we began to kind of understand that, because new things came into the market. The environments themselves maybe weren't looking as special as they could be. One of the strongest things we found though was the staff, the teams. People have been there for like 20 years plus, like lots of them. I'm not talking handfuls. So there's got to be something good in that. So we looked at it and we're like, right, Prezzo isn't changing, or Prezzo, as you should say, I think, but Prezzo isn't changing. So what can we do? So go looking at some naming stuff. So there's a lot of prefixes you could use. So we're looking at, is it cafe, is it casa, is it, we looked at all these things. Then the suffixes as well, Italiana, Italiano, blah, blah, blah. So we went through, as many as you can think of and ChatGPT can think of. So we looked at all that. And then we started thinking, well, what if we dislocated it slightly and we kept core ones, and then we maybe turned other ones into kind of neighborhood ones and changed the name to something a little bit more independent. But actually you're starting from scratch there, then you're handling two brands, and, and then something I talk about a lot, right, is it's when I was a kid, I was in a band, right, and we were playing our very first gig, and I was like 15, I think, 16, and in a pub, and I went for a pee right before I went on stage, and at the urinals, this bit of graffiti said, and it stuck with me forever: "Eat shit, a billion flies can't be wrong," right? So I think about that a lot, right? I think we try too hard to invent something new, or and it's just like, look, the marketplace has done well, by adding Italian or Italia onto the end. Do you know what? Sometimes the best solutions just staring you in the face, And I was slightly worried because we had this big build up to, new name for Prezzo, all this, and then it's like Prezzo Italian. It's like, right. But actually, a lot of people sort of applauded it and just were like, look, it was almost so obvious it would have been a crime not to do it. And that's what really well, because when we looked at the research, we could see that a lot of people weren't familiar with Prezzo as people were getting older. The younger troops coming through didn't know. And also, it just wasn't clear to a lot of people what Prezzo did, Just with that name, it could fall under a few things. And there was very little outside saying what it was, or very little comms saying what it was. So it was kind of like, if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. So you can't grow then, So it was just a bit like, do you know what? We just need to say what we are, front and centre. So that was kind of the first bit. So it was like, right, Prezzo Italian tick. Then we were like, right, we've got to own a colour. So we looked at the marketplace and, kind of the ones that were really in competition were not really small ones or anything. So, really our competition is Ask Italian, it's easy. Bella, Italia, and that's about it. Pizza Express is way up there, and it's a national treasure. So we'll get to that, But right now, when you look at any comparisons, our consideration is pretty much the same as those guys. Our familiarity is pretty much the same, etc. So our biggest problem is differentiation.
Hmm.
And I get it myself, right? Even on a Saturday night, sometimes I get a text through going, Mark, could you get us a discount at Easy? And I'm going, could try, but I don't work there. So even my nearest and dearest are confused, right? And when they are, you're thinking, "Christ, what's the nation like?" So I guess where we were at is that you see the Italian, one of the Italians, and you go, "Oh, that'll do." And you don't want that reaction. You want, "Oh my God, I want to drop everything because I'm craving their whatever, whatever it is." So that was the kind of the next phase was, right, well, how do we stand out? So in terms of the colour, we tried a few. I was really into this terracotta colour actually, but the first restaurant we were going to do was Kensington, and it was on a terracotta building. So it just disappeared. So I lost that argument. There's a lot of greens, obviously, in the marketplace, and there's a lot of kind of Italiana looking stuff. And we don't want to be the Del Mio Man or Super Mario or anything cliched like that. So JB was going on about blue quite a lot, and I was like, blue's not usually a good colour for food. Sometimes it kind of use, it's for danger. But then we looked at it, we're like, well, there's Azzurri blue, there's what the Italian team wear. It's really in fashion at the moment, it's really strong. And we thought, you know what, that would be great. And then once we saw it in like the awnings and the banquettes and the market and stuff like that, I was like, oh, actually, that's quite tasty. That. Yeah, definitely. So we're really pleased with that. So that was kind of next bit. Then during the brand day, to the big outputs really were Home of the Italian Classics. Now, that came out from one of the guys that used to work on the team. Actually, he was there on the day, but he's left now. Got a really cool job with Whole Foods. And he just mentioned it. And he goes, oh, was this phrase? And this is what happens on the brand days. The more you just talking, and you're there to be the detective, right? And sort of catch the sort of diamonds, if you like. And this Home of the Italian Classics came out. I thought, wow, that's quite good, that. Because I'd been banging on about, what do we sell the most of? Can we not just be good at that? Obviously be good at everything you can, but just be brilliant at, be the best lasagna in the marketplace for that price point. So that was like, absolutely. But it didn't feel like a DNA to me. So, as in a rallying cry. And just through that whole day, just better kept coming out, and when we looked at who would we welcome into Prezzo Italian? Well, everyone, for everyone. I mean, are billionaires going to eat it? Probably not. But, we want to have that open arms sort of warmth and welcome. So we thought that was good. And then it helped be the linchpin of all the areas, right? So you've got better culture, better food, better service, better products in general, better fit outs and environments, better locations when you're, better accounting. Better menu. The other thing was we went through the menus and we were trying to be too fancy. And this was a cultural thing as well, where people who were into the kind of older days were seeing it as really stylized, and it was very, lots of Italian words. And when we started to ask the teams, we were like, do people get confused about what Tre Gusti is and all that? We're like, just call it the meaty pizza, like just get on with it. Do you know what I mean? So we really sort of simplified it to make sure that people didn't feel embarrassed or, they knew what they were getting. Because I think when you're in this London bubble and, you're in a middle-class job and all these things, you forget about the real people that are around the UK that are actually using your brand, right? And when we looked at the customer study, we found out that, and this is something I'm really clinging on to, is, they are middle in terms of demographic of the majority of the UK. So it's reading the Sun and the Daily Mail. Then in terms of food, if you went to Nando's, you'd probably not be getting the spicier sausage. You're going to be lemon and herb. They're going to be Costa all day long. They're going to be ITV1. It's just that. It's just the mainstream. And sometimes the difficulty with marketing teams, especially in London and all the rest of it, is they do it for themselves, not the customer. So they don't know someone that is making a choice between eating with us or buying their kid football boots.
This is going to be one of the questions I was going to follow up with, to go like around success metrics. How do you know, like, have you been able to get a feedback loop to know this has resonated with that majority? The change in, I know it's only it's in a few of the sites now and it's still rolling out, but early signs showing that this is hitting home with the people, the target demographic.
Yeah, in terms of the customers and resonating with them, and the outside stuff and the full rebrand, only, we've only got a handful at the moment, so we're still checking on that. However, people will have experienced the rebrand through the marketing, with the emails coming through, the menu on there, the changes in some of the recipes, even changes like going from Pepsi to Coca-Cola and things like that. We've got a constant feedback loop going on, so much so that I slightly want to turn it off in a way, that we've got daily mystery shopper things coming through. We're obsessed about Google reviews and what's happening. We haven't specifically done focus groups, to sit and go, does this resonate with you and all the rest of it. I think that's a good thing to do, but sometimes, your gut does tell you this, this is the right thing. Because if Kensington hadn't worked, then we would have known something was wrong anyway. But in terms of the busyness, its location isn't front and centre, it's up a kind of side street. And I was there day and night for, a couple of weeks really, seeing it, finishing the build, and then seeing guests coming in, and it was a joy, to see how impressed people were. So people going from, I've lived here for 20 years and, I would never have set foot in this place, to, one of the nights I went in and there was a group of 12 had booked, and I was like, this is unheard of for that little site. And then a coach party of German students came in, sort of, teens, and they were like thinking it was super cool and all the rest of it. And then there was oldies sitting in the corner. But there was like 20 of them, so you couldn't move in there. So I think we would know something was wrong. But I guess if you look at it and you go, right, you've got a mainstream audience. They want the classics. They want it, served incredibly well in a nice environment for a really good price. And what I guess the metric I'm always thinking about is value for quality. Is it the cheapest Italian you could get out there? No. Yeah, there's some discounting going on and all the rest of it. We'd love to just kind of move that metric across to sort of value for quality and also add-in value. So that was a big part of the app as well. So yeah, we're constantly checking. But the biggest things that we're worried about constantly is, food and service. Not that we're worried about it, but we just want to make sure we get it right. Because it is one of these things, as I'm saying, this could be someone's monthly, quarterly night out. It's almost like how, you can't get that wrong.
Consistency is everything. We talked a little bit before around attribution. I know being an operator on a smaller scale myself, struggle sometimes around attribution of brand campaigns or marketing campaigns, and naively then you can redistribute the OpEx into something else that's, I don't know if more impulsive, maybe, if it's the wrong word for it, but sometimes you can feel it.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? And how do you manage that at the scale that you're at? I could imagine you touched on CFOs, FDs, boards, investors.
Yeah.
Must be a challenging environment. How do you navigate that?
Well, I think there's a few things. One, it does slightly drive me insane that most hospitality operators give an arbitrary percentage and then the goalposts change about what they want back for it. That doesn't really work. That's like going, right, I've got 500 grand for a house, and then, depending on the market, I might be able to afford it, I might not. Oh, can I have 2 extra bedrooms, but I still want to pay 500? It's like, so the problem in most hospitality businesses is they don't start with a brand strategy. So if you sit down with a brand strategy and you say, right, what are the 3 to 5 big things we're going to do this year? And then underneath that, you then look at the high level initiatives of that. And then from there, what's the tactics for the initiatives? You can cost that up, and then you can say, right, and this is where the marketing director puts their neck on the line, or the CMO, and they say, I'm going to bring you back this. So the business needs this, but actually I think I can maybe improve on that if we do all these things. And by the way, here's the things we're not going to do. Or if we do, fine, but I need more resource, I need more, Then you can sit and go, right, this is the best bank in the world. You give me 3 million quid, 2 million quid, 500 grand, whatever it is, and I'll bring you back 20x that, let's see, right? But it doesn't work like that. Basically, there's a real pride from CEOs that I've seen and CFOs to go, how small a percentage can I give my marketing team and how much can I get back? I'm not saying everyone's like that, they're not. So that doesn't really work. So the first thing you're really looking at then is, how do I not lose my job? as a marketing director. So you sit down and you go, what's a surefire thing? Okay, surefire things are CRM. I need a website and I need to keep that running. I'm going to need some kind of creative during the year. And I'm going to need AdWords and some social spend. That's about it. Pretty much when you've done those 5 things, that budget's gone and more, you know? So that's the difficult part, because actually what is not being tested is how can we optimize that spend? You know, how can we push it so far that a penny spent on, you know, AdWords, for example, or digital advertising would end up costing us, you know, how have we really put the throttle down? And we kind of never get to that. The problem as well is, you know, Gary Vee talks about this a lot lately. Google AdWords is basically the Yellow Pages now, right, already. So from that perspective, it's just going to be diminishing returns. So we can't keep doing what we've always done. And, you know, one of the things that drives me crazy really in marketing teams, and this is across the board, is it really seems to be, we've sent an email, we've done an Instagram post, we've done a TikTok post, which is basically what we did on Instagram, but well, that'll be all right, I suppose. And then we've got some AdWords going on, and, you know, we're sending out an email like that, and that's it. And you're like, right, there's a whole market mix out there. So, but the pressures these guys are under is huge. You know, the resource kind of isn't there. Everyone puts an inordinate amount of effort into social, when I don't think they should. You know, the return coming back from social is very low. So I really question why people are doing it. But back to your question, I think, you know, the main things are having this 2-speed mentality, right? So attribution one way is on brand. So you want to do big brand building things. There are literally, you know, a handful of brands in hospitality that actually do brand building. So Wagamama does, McDonald's does, etc., etc. And then what everyone goes, oh, but you know, they're big brands. Well, the Shums still do it at a kind of lower budget, you know? So again, from that point of view, I think people are just short-termist. They rule marketing, they rule a restaurant group from a spreadsheet. Doesn't really work like that. So attribution to brand is do your brand stuff, have brand tracking in place, but also constantly tracking the funnel. So then you're seeing what effect you're having and where you're having it. However, look at your funnel to say you might, for Prezzo Italian, we don't have an awareness problem, really. It's, you know, pretty good for the size of organisation we are. There's no point in doing awareness activity in brand building. We need to do consideration. You know, why would you use, you know, why would you come along to Prezzo Italian, you know, more than anyone else? And then the other side of things then is the market side of things. So, you know, absolutely, you need to go to the business and the business says, right, we need to make this amount to make this amount of profit. Fine, cover that with your marketing stuff. And that should be almost infinitely attributable, really, because you're probably not in market all the time, you know, doing offline things or anything. So if you do, you'll be able to see the spike. If you do a local residents business campaign or whatever it is, you know, you should be able to pick that up, you know, fairly simply. And the best way to do it is pick some of your worst performing restaurants and do it with them. And then once you see the uplift there, you can get a little model together and then you can, you know, show what's going on. And then digital's infinitely trackable, so you should be able to do that. So yeah, that's your Monday morning meeting, I suppose, is going, we did this, we got this back. This worked because this didn't work because this. And then you sort of keep doing the good stuff and sort of lose the bad for a bit, you know?
Start iterating on it, yeah, see what works. Why do you think that so many operators have that short-term mindset? Is it because of margin pressure or that the environment and it's hard to see the wood between the trees?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like the football thing again. You've got to win your first few games. You know, no one's going to afford you. Oh, this will be fine in 2 years' time when we've built the brand. You know, it's only brands, you know, that are rare like the Shum, Hawksmoor, etc. that do that. So it's just constant. It's this week. I mean, even when I was in Yo Sushi, I mean, we used to get reports through it was like the last 15 minutes of sales. So yeah, in terms of sales, it's just that huge pressure. That's the first thing you've got to cover. But if you only have that transactional relationship with your customers, you're not building anything for future, you know? So if you've got a bunch of customers that basically become, discount hungry, because they'll know, they're like DFS, they're always on sale. I'll go there and it'll do and it's fine. It's just really transactional. You've got to have a little bit more than that,
Yeah, 100%.
So it's got to be a lot more rounded than that. You've got to build that emotional connection, and the only way to do that is through your brand.
Mm. You've touched on a few different like tools and technologies and things that you use. So you touched on like CRM, social media, UGC, email campaigns, offline leaflet drops, like obviously your marketing mix. You briefly touched on ChatGPT earlier. AI is everywhere
Sure.
now in the news and online. Do you see it embedded in your workflows? Do you see it in how you operate? Or do you see it's more buzz than actual kind of value that you're seeing in your workflows today?
It's not as it should be. So I think what, companies that I'm working with at the moment, there is one that's using it really well, but which I'll talk about in a sec. But in terms of hospitality, it's kind of, how can Chat GPT help me with my homework a little bit? So it's being used of, I need some ideas for, it's kind of in that area. So I think from that perspective, that's one of a million tools that are out there. So, don't just get hooked on that. Also, if you're smart, train it, train it with, what your brand's all about, so that you don't have to keep doing that. Train it about yourself, train it about how you would talk, AI it as well. So get it to come back with the way you would speak, the way you would write, get the hyphens out, stop with all the emojis. There's just all this kind of setup before you start using it. So I think, how it could be used though is, and I'm not very good at this right enough, but a lot more in the planning and the process side, and and rollouts, and just get to do the heavy lifting. But actually, I'd love to see it a lot more in creative, in terms of A/B testing, and hospitality just doesn't have the time, money, or bandwidth to be doing a lot of A/B testing and trialing this and what if, and it really is gun to your head stuff. It's like, Christ, we're a bit light on sales for Saturday. What are we going to do? Oh, why don't we do this deal? Right, get it out. That's kind of
It's the reality on the ground, yeah.
Whereas I'd much rather we'd be sitting planning Mother's Day for next year now, and actually, what could it be like? What could work? What couldn't work? Also with our adverts, is it a beer that's got the sort of droplets of water going down the side that performs better than a group of people enjoying pizza, or an overhead shot, or a bubbling something, or so I'd love to see it a lot more than that. CRM, you could be using it for, it could be writing all your CRM, and you could be having it personalized and all the rest of it. So as far as I've seen, no, there's people just playing at it, which is fine, I understand. But it's more sort of back end and front end, and I just think it's so much more capable. I would say to anyone listening, get yourself on one or two of the best, courses that are out there. And I think even like HubSpot's got like a free one, do you know what I mean? And there's very low cost ones got at some of the London business schools. So, really for you to understand how it works. And now I've got ChatGPT 5, you've not missed much, if you start now. And what they were comparing it to was ChatGPT 4 was like having a high school student as your friend or whatever. Calling it a friend, that's so sad. But then now it's like having a PhD student. And then what Sam Altman was saying on a podcast the other day was, the CEO there, ChatGPT 7 will basically be able to be the president of the US. Like, it'll be able to run the country. So it's here, whether you like it or not. I think it's to be embraced. I mean, there's a lot of people scared about it. I'm not scared one bit. I love it. Like, I was lucky that I saw the start of the internet as well. Like, I was sort of starting to work around 98, and thought it was the best thing ever. And then I saw social, and now I'm seeing this, and you just feel incredibly lucky, to be honest.
You're also the founder of Hospitality Guru. You're putting together a course for the next generation of marketeers entering into the sector. If you were to give, maybe you can talk a little bit about the course, but
Sure.
But first, if you were to give any kind of nuggets of advice or pattern recognition that you'd seen, where would you encourage these people to focus their time and their efforts, considering there's a lot of noise out there, right?
So Hospitality Marketing Guru. So thanks for the plug. So you can sign up now, actually, hospitalitymarketingguru.com. So there's going to be sort of 10 modules, and basically it's 25 years of my complete knowledge in one course. That should hopefully help people. So there's some amazing courses out there that people should go on. So definitely do the Mark Ritson, too many MBAs, amazing. Rory Sutherland's Mad Masters, and definitely do that as well. So some great ones. But what I was thinking was there isn't one specifically for hospitality, and it is quite a different way to market. So yeah, that's going to launch in January 26th. So I'm really excited about that. So in terms of the nuggets and what it is and all the rest of it, I mean, basically it's going through everything, which is, from what is hospitality, what's hospitality marketing, why is it different, differences between brand and marketing and all that. And then starting to get into, your guest and research and segmentation and all these things. All the way through then to how to do your brand DNA. So I'm giving away, my brand DNA process for, a couple
Nice.
£100
Very cool.
for what that module is, in the round. Local marketing, national campaigns, activation, leadership, financial acumen, all these different things. So it should really be this kind of, end-to-end masterclass, because what I feel with a lot of hospitality marketing is someone's maybe worked in a bar or a restaurant, something like that. They've maybe put on an event, or they're seen really good at social, whatever it is. And then they kind of get flung into a marketing assistant role. And then basically it's, just the same as it goes round. There's no training, there's no background, there's no rigor. And it really is a trade, it's a profession. So you should know what you're doing, from that. So you kind of learn on the job, you pick up a load of bad habits. And then, as I say, the sort of thing that I'm seeing most from marketing teams at the moment is, I put it on Instagram, I sent an email, I've got my Google AdWords going, what else do you want? And it's like, well, a lot more, actually. So it's to be able to teach people how to do that and how to progress their career like really quickly as well, and stand out from the people that haven't done this course, because they'll leave them behind. So that's the hope that we can teach. And also, you're saying next generation, there'll be a lot of this generation as well that, just haven't had that training. They've just been flung on the job, bullied by ops.
Because you said gun to head, trying to get it to work. Yeah.
Stuff, and it's just like, we need it now. And sure, they're doing a good job, they're doing the best they can, but I really want people to, feel confident, when as being a marketer, and actually give them credibility, in the boardroom, where they can push back and go, no, that's not right, because this, and actually, give a better result. So no quicker way to the boardroom than that, really.
Oh, fair play. We'll link that in the show notes.
Thanks.
Hospitality Marketing Guru. You can sign up now for January intake.
January 26th, yeah.
Nice. We're going to move on to the quick turn, which is our final segment. So it's a couple of quick fire questions just to get your take.
Okay.
Quick fire.
And or deck, is it that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much, right? Okay. So what's one operational headache that you think marketing could solve if ops let them?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think probably two things. One, return visits. I think marketing could get a lot more involved in that. I think what a lot of operators are like, no, we've got it at hand. Once we've got them in, we'll get them back, and da-da-da. I think I always think about going to the hairdressers or whatever, and they go, right, when can I book you in next? When you come back? And I don't think we do enough. I think operations let a lot of things slide, and I think everyone should be trained within an inch of their life to say, do you want fries with that, or are you coming back? Then I think upselling as well, and actually just working together. And if ops could come to market and say, do you know what, I've got a real problem with selling coffees, or I've got a real let's work through this together. And I think it's about understanding, each other's roles and how you can help each other. I would say that's ones that are front of mind anyway. I don't know if it's the ones, but yeah,
nice.
Front of mind.
What's the most overhyped marketing trend in hospitality right now?
I still think it's social. I think we're bent out of shape with an inordinate amount of time and effort into literally zero returns of just noise. I seen it in a video a little while ago where, no one's waking up to go, I wonder what so-and-so's pizza special is today. Like, I think in a lot of cases we've and TikTok's exposing this, I think we've got social wrong. Here's my product, here's my product, here's my product. And, I think, but then the scary bit is you're committing to being, almost like entertainment and content rich, and that comes with money and time and all these things. But if you go and check out something like the Nitro Bar on TikTok, which is, a little 3 or 4 coffee shops in Rhode Island that's knocking it out the park, watch their content and see why, because there's a thing. Yeah, I think we've got it really wrong, and we're doing what we did 5 years ago, and it's just boring.
That's how you benchmark yourself too, right? People reference Ryanair's social media as being reactive, but they have a team of maybe 15 or 20 social media marketeers their full-time job is to scour the algorithm, scour content, make sure they can be in the mix.
Funny though.
Yeah, it's good, but they might have 500 misses and one hit.
Yeah.
And you don't have that budget or that capacity in hospitality.
You could have that budget if you decided to do it.
Yeah, fair.
So, if you look at, Wingstop do a great job on social.
Yeah.
And also some of the things I'm seeing, which I'm really loving, is on TikTok, Tortilla actually are doing a really good job, and their money will be coming back out of that, and for example, they've ripped their brand rule book and thrown it out the window, and they're even like swearing on posts and like using like soundtracks that are like swearing on, and because they know their audience, and that's a big part of it that's scary on TikTok, which is you need to sort of look and act like and talk like people do on TikTok. And that's really scary for brands to kind of dislodge that. And I think also what's, coming as well is real subliminal marketing. So the Trojan horse of this podcast, but actually you'd have, Prezzo Italian there, or, you'd have a pizza sitting that's got the branded box.
Okay, what's one tool, system or process that you couldn't live without in Prezzo Italian in your day-to-day?
I was thinking about this. I was reading this earlier on. I was having a coffee. I think probably ChatGPT at the moment is my everything. It's my therapist and my girlfriend. No, it's not. But I think that has been super helpful. And the more that I'm working with it, but the important thing is not just to cut and paste it. Right, it's a view, and it might save you some donkey work, but you've got to apply your brain to it. But it's just boring. Like it's boring, man. So which is just like my MacBook and my phone. Like,
yeah, fair.
It's everything. Like it's my lifeline to the world. I'm never off it. But yeah, my phone probably more than my MacBook.
If you could wave a wand and fix one broken thing across hospitality, what would it be, and why?
A couple of things actually. One is just cost of everything for hospitality operators, because we've got to then pass that on to the guest, and it sucks. And none of us wants to be doing that. I mean, an example, right, just a daft example. I was buying some butter knives last night for the house, these kind of bone handle ones, and I bought 2 5 years ago. They've went up by almost double. Like just that alone, so when you think about your cutlery and, and all these things, because we would pass it on to the customer, we don't want to rip anyone off, so, and it's going to top out, right? You're not going to pay 30 quid for your fish and chips. You're just not. So where does it end? And it ain't going to get any cheaper. Second thing is perception of the industry. So we've had a lot of shouty chefs and bullying and, bad stories and all the rest of it. And it kind of makes me quite sad. I started a thing a couple of years ago called Hospitality Rising during COVID to try and get 300,000 applications coming into hospitality, but moreover than that was to shift the perception over many years. Unfortunately, the industry had other priorities and money was tight, so they didn't invest in it for a year, sort of 2, 3 really, which was a shame. But we raised over £1 million, and then we get £1 million worth of help from the people who do Army Be the Best and Rory Sutherland, the great thinker, and VCCP and all different people. So we were really thankful for that. It's one of the best campaigns I've ever worked on. We won not about awards, but we won a shed load. And also it was against people, like we beat like Adidas and Paramount Plus and all these things. So it showed that what was capable, what was possible. So what I would love is in the magic wand, 5 years time, 10 years time, that when, little Johnny or whoever's, thinking about what they're going to do next, and they've got the choice of, college, uni, working in an agency, you know, working in a bank, whatever it is, that hospitality would be somewhere in that conversation. Because two things that came out really was you won't go further faster in terms of your career. You can go super fast to the top in hospitality if you just show some willing and all the rest of it. And I love this phrase of start here, go anywhere. Like, you know, you could start in something and you could end up in, you know, China doing something. You know, it's quite exciting from that point of view. And the pay isn't that bad when you look at it. You know, it really isn't bad at all, considering with tips and all the rest of it. It's not too shabby at all.
Nice, sorry like that. What's one of the most unexpected places you found inspiration for a brand activation or a brand activity?
This is a good one. I was really struggling with this. Well, the place I find most inspiration is in the shower, part one, which is, and actually, someone told me why that is. So it's really good if you're a marketer, like go and have a shower, you'll have some good thoughts. But it's around isolation, blood flow, you know, with the water and all the rest of it, and that's ASMR sort of noise. So that's just the best place ever to go, oh, wait a minute.
Nice, I like that. It's a good one to finish on. I think for any marketeers, take a shower. Well, look, Mark, you're a gent. Thanks so much for coming on.
Great
It's
to
great
see
to have you.
Thank you.
Thanks. What an episode. It was awesome to have Mark on and awesome to have our first marketeer on the podcast. It's really, really insightful to see a different perspective of running a hospitality business at national scale. Oftentimes we're speaking to heads of people, operations and finance, and today Mark shared some really unique and really compelling insights about what it takes to position a brand for short-term but also long-term success. What I really liked from this episode was how Mark talked about alignment. The only way a brand refresh, a rebrand, a reposition, or just a brand strategy in general is going to work is if everybody is aligned. He talked real tactically around culture, product services, and brand and people all being one interconnected organism that needs to be aligned in order to have a true strategic direction. It was a fantastic episode, and I'm hoping that you took something from Mark's story. And if you did, please share it with a fellow operator. And if you're not following us already, now is the time. Until next time.